Hi there, Tom here from Fugoya. Today, I want to give you a detailed look at how time tracking in Fugoya works and show you some currently rather undocumented little nuggets. Before anything else, I want to talk to you about why to track time in the first place. A common misconception is that tracking time solely exists so you can invoice time. While this is an obvious and valid use case, in our opinion, the much bigger reason to track your time is to understand how long certain tasks take you. If you better understand the workload incurred by something, you can write much better proposals, gain confidence, and ultimately earn more or work less. The biggest pain point with time tracking, unfortunately, is that it's a huge pain in the ass if you want to track everything you do manually. Depending on your job, it's very likely that you need to quickly switch context, and accurately representing this with manual time tracking is a hassle not many want to put up with. So, at the end of the day, you're likely either tracking vaguely or not at all, which is the key reason people don't see it as a great tool for insights on your work. Time tracking in Fugoya is designed in a way to absolutely minimize manual interaction to the bare minimum possible, like a few clicks a week, while still being precise to seconds. Let me show you how it works. While Fugoya is open on your machine, minimized is fine by the way, it just needs to be running, Fugoya tracks the application name and window title of your foremost window, and no other information in a locally stored database on your device. I cannot express enough that this data never reaches Fugoya servers at all. That means your privacy is completely retained, but it also means we can't troubleshoot any bugs with your local data unless you send it to us specifically in a support request. We just literally don't have any access. We try to be clever not to capture invisible windows, and for some apps like Adobe, we transform the window title to get rid of things like zoom states. When your operating system detects you as idle, Fugoya won't consider it as track time, so feel free to go to lunch and return without needing to start and stop anything. In a time tracking view, your automatically tracked time shows up as tracked entries, which are clustered for your convenience. So if you need to switch context, we don't clutter the interface with hundreds of few seconds entries, but instead show them in clusters that happen at the same time in different rows. This means that the length of a cluster in a timeline very often will be larger than the actual duration. The actual duration is always shown on full when hovering and used for further actions, which I will come back to later. For full transparency, holding Command and Option on Mac or Control and Alt on Windows will show you how these clusters are made up. You will see that at any given point in time, chunks can only exist in one tracking entry since you can only have one foremost window at any given time. Alright, now that we have the data, what can we do with it? When expanding the tracked entry to its full state by hovering, you can always delete the entry or manually attach it to a project, turning it into what we call an attached entry. Attached entries, as the name suggests, convert this arbitrary local time into something actionable that is part of a project. Now is the first time this data is stored in the Fugoya cloud. You can edit a description to add information what you did during this time, change the start time, and adjust the duration as you see fit. We definitely recommend, and especially if you mostly work on flat fee projects, to not change durations, unless it's necessary, to always have the truth on hand, how long things actually took you. If you want to invoice time and round up values, you can do so automatically when creating the invoice, but more on that later. Optionally, you can also add a rate, which is not necessary but gives you nice feedback of how much you earned on a particular day. When selecting a project, Fugoya pulls in the rate of the project for you. I'll explain what to further do with attached entries when talking about the project time tracking view. You can also manually create attached entries without prior tracked entries by entering Create mode on the top right. When in Create mode, you can create manual time tracking entries by clicking somewhere on the timeline where it will create an attached entry at the given point in time. Note that this disables entry selection. When exiting Create mode, you can select entries again. Attaching entries by hand is time consuming and not what Fugoya is about at all. So the main way of connecting time to projects is by creating what we call tracking rules. A tracking rule matches text for an application name and title and routes entries that match the rule to projects. Rules are quite powerful and enable interesting combinations. You can leave the window title empty to, for example, route all the work in Notion to a project called admin work. And you can also leave the application name empty and enter the name of a client like Reginald in the window title and route it to your Reginald project, which essentially routes any app that you have opened that contains the name of your client somewhere in its window title automatically to the correct project. The best way to do it though is to set up multiple rules fine-grained to certain app name and window title combinations. Just like tracking rules, you can set up ignore rules for things that you don't want to see on your timeline, like private stuff, social media usage, or apps like Spotify that likely never be available for you. It fuzzy matches just like tracking rules, so if you have an obscure username across social media or forums, you can just add this username to the window title of an ignore rule and leave app title empty to completely ignore any activity on apps where this username is in the window title. For your convenience, you can hover any tracked entry and you'll find two buttons to create tracking or ignore rules from that entry. When a rule catches a tracking entry, we show this as what we call a caught entry. You can individually accept catches, attach to a different project at will if you think it was accidentally caught, or simply delete the entry. But again, obviously we don't stop there, as that means manual labor and we hate manual labor. If you have dutifully created rules, you find that all catches are correct, and it makes no sense to go through them one by one. That's why on any day that has caught entries, there's a bulk pane on the bottom left. It allows you to separately accept entries, effectively turning every caught entry into an attached entry as if you clicked manually on every single one, or accept and merge, which tries to merge multiple catches of the same rule into one merged entry per rule. Practically does the same as accept separately, but results in fewer entries. For your convenience, there's also an option to delete all entries that were caught. But merging is not only available for caught entries. You can click drag on a timeline to make a selection of any amount and any kind of entry and merge them all together into a singular attached entry. This can be very useful, for example, if you know you were researching across 20 different websites in the afternoon. Simply select all entries in that time span and merge them into a new attached entry with the description research. Keep in mind, even complex operations like merging together hundreds of entries of a single day still can be undone anytime, as with almost anything in Fugoya. At the top of the screen, you can navigate to any day you want to see entries of. Squared in blue is the currently selected day. A day with a blue number and a background indicates that there are attached entries, and you likely have completed that day. A day with a dark gray number on a gray background means there are tracked entries but no attached entries yet, and you likely still need to go through that day attaching things. And lastly, a light gray number on a white background means no activity was recorded on that day at all. When you leave the time tracking view open on the current day overnight, it will switch over to the next day for you when you open your laptop. Because we can only efficiently show a fraction of the full 24 hours of a day at once, and there might potentially be large holes in your day, there's a chance of missing entries by simply not seeing them. To counter this, Fugoya has a minimap up top that shows you tracked entries in gray, caught entries in yellow, and attached entries in green. Any currently selected entries will show up as blue in the minimap as well. In the left sidebar, you'll see your day summed up. Up first is a little pie chart showing you how much of your track time today was attached, how much was ignored by ignore rules, and how much remained open, meaning not attachable to any project or simply not attached yet. If you add rates to attached entries, you'll see a green number popping up showing you how much value you worked today. Lastly, in the sidebar, you have two lists of sums. First, a list of all attached entries of this day grouped by project, which quickly tells you on what projects you worked on this particular day. Secondly, a list of sums of entries over the whole day grouped by app name and window title combination, which quickly tells you in what windows you spent the most time on this day. Hovering any sum in both lists highlights which entries made up that sum in the timeline. Clicking a sum selects all entries affected and scrolls to the first selected entry for your convenience. Note that you can absolutely shift-click sums to add them to your current selection. This way, you can quickly churn through your entries within seconds, even without properly setting up rules. If you right-click a caught or attached entry, you can quickly navigate to its related project's time tracking view. In the project detail view, under the time tracking tab, you'll find a list of all attached entries of the project, filtered by the current time filter in chronological order. That being said, feel free to click the column head cells to change the sorting. Double-clicking a row or clicking the little pencil icon on hover will make the entry inline editable. You can freely select multiple and merge or delete them. You can also manually add an entry in case that's necessary. Now, what to do with all those entries? You can always export data of the currently filtered time span on the top right, but mainly there are two main results. If you bill by time, it makes sense to turn those entries into invoices. If you bill by flat fee, it makes sense to mark entries as billed by an invoice. In case you bill by time, Once you have a bunch of entries selected, you can click Create Invoice with Selection, after which you can apply an optional rounding up, down, nearest, or no rounding at all. Keep in mind that rounding is applied per entry, where every line is one entry. So depending on your profession, cleaning up can be a good idea. If you're a freelance project manager and you have 60 entries with a handful of minutes per entry each, it might make sense to first merge all of these entries and then apply rounding. If you're an attorney at law and you charge per phone call, rather rounding individual entries might make more sense. Your rounding settings are saved on your device, so it picks up the settings you used last time next time you create an invoice from tracking entries. In case you bill flat fees, your tracking entries are still equally as valuable. Once you have entries selected, you can click Mark as Billed by Invoice, which opens up a list of invoices you can mark the entries being covered by. That means that you still invoiced your flat amount, but on the billed hours headline, you can now track how much markup or loss you made. It works by subtracting the invoiced amount by the time spent multiplied by the chosen rates. This can be a great way to see if you acted economically on this project and can help you better estimate future projects. That's also why it's always a good idea to add an arbitrary rate to better gauge project efficiency. Further in the list of billed hours, you'll see all invoices of this project along with all entries that were marked as billed by that invoice. One of the main benefits of Fugoya and housing all your freelance tools under one roof is how different parts of the app benefit from each other. After a certain amount of hours that are attached but not invoiced yet, Fugoya offers you an action on the Today screen where you can create an invoice and apply rounding with a single click. You can adjust the threshold of how soon the action appears in Settings Time Tracking. Additionally, your attached time shows up in your project history. This makes it easy to chronologically understand when you were working and helps puzzling the past together if necessary. Let's say you're illustrating on a piece of paper or you're having a UX workshop using post-it notes on a frame. There definitely are situations where work happens off-screen where automatic time tracking is simply not possible. Because of that, and for people that for some reason just dislike the automatic nature, manual time tracking is still a first-class citizen of Fugoya. Since you will want it in direct reach at all times, the manual timer is not part of the main window, but rather a tray window that resides in the menu bar on Mac and in the taskbar on Windows. Optionally, enter a description or just hit play right away, and the timer will start running. This timer will continue to run even if you close Fugoya until you stop or delete it. After selecting a project, you can stop the timer to create an attached entry in your time tracking and project detailed time tracking view in real time on the current day. In case you need to context switch and you don't want to use automatic tracking, while pressing Option on Mac or Alt on Windows, you'll see a pause button popping up that you can use to pause a timer to resume it later. Instead of directly stopping, this produces less tracking entries and can lead to a much less cluttered interface when starting and stopping very frequently. Paired with the fact that you can start as many overlapping timers as you want, this also enables quick context switching while tracking manually, if you like that. In case you will never want to use manual time tracking, you can permanently hide the tray icon in Settings Time Tracking. If you forgot about a timer, Fugoya will send you a native OS notification. In the same Settings tab, you can adjust the threshold after how many minutes Fugoya should remind you. Right-clicking the tray icon lets you show the main window, or on Windows recreate it if you closed it, or quit Fugoya entirely. It also shows you whether or not the automatic time tracker is currently running, and clicking the info toggles it. Tasks receive the stopwatch icon, which when clicked, opens the tray and creates a timer for you with the task title as a description and the same project selected. After all, time tracking in Fugoya, just as with any other part of the app, is about saving your time while providing as much value as possible. We found it works best to review your previous day when you get to your computer in the morning, but just doing it once a week and looking through your automatically generated entries mostly works fine too. It's really about the technology working for you and not the other way around. We had so much fun building this and reflecting on our own work days, and I can't wait to hear about your results using it. Please give time tracking Fugoya a try and let us know what you think.